We see an opportunity to do what's right, to change business as usual, to become business as it should be, where people don't just live and work, they thrive. To do that, Colliers is committing to elevate the way we do business, to elevate the built environment. We will minimize environmental impacts in our own operations and through the services we provide our clients. We will increase diversity and inclusion in Colliers and across our procurement practices to create an atmosphere welcoming of diverse ideas and perspectives. We will promote health and well-being in our operations and through our client services to help improve lives. Together, we will elevate the built environment and build better for our collective future. For ourselves, for our clients, for our communities, for the world.
Introducing MBC's Economy Dashboard. Access and filter key economic data in just a few clicks and view it on your phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop. You can easily select and take a screenshot of the data that you want, paste it on your presentation, and you're good to go. You also have the option to easily download the data, print it, and have your own copy, or send the PDF version via email. MBC aims to help leaders access and process economic data easily through the Economy Dashboard. Data that can be useful in understanding the current economic situation in the Philippines. Easily access our website and dashboard by saving it on your phone's home screen. Try and test it out today. Visit www.mbc.com.ph.
The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the voice of Philippine business. Established by a dynamic group of individuals with strong leadership presence and passion for business and economic development. An influential alliance of business leaders providing policy directions to government and ensuring sustained economic development. This is the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On April 19, 1886, three of the largest Spanish companies in Manila formed the Cámara de Comercio de Filipinas. Following the downfall of the colonial Spanish government, the popularity of La Cámara waned, and a new organization of Filipino and Chinese mestizo businessmen established the Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, CCP, in 1903. Barely half a century after, a group of industrialists founded the Philippine Chamber of Industries, PCI. On July 1, 1978, the two chambers merged, giving birth to the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, PCCI. In September of the same year, PCCI was recognized as the country's single voice of business through Presidential Letter of Instruction 780. After more than a century, the Chamber continues to chart the course of economic development in the country. Lending its voice to the government, PCCI continues to be at the forefront to influence public policies in the areas of agriculture and food security, banking and finance, capital market development, energy and power, water utilities, environment, formal and technical vocational education, infrastructure development, intellectual property and innovation, international trade, local economic development, taxation, SME support services, tourism, and transportation and logistics. Covering business comprehensively to ensure the business expansion and country's future growth and progression through its partnership with the government, local chambers, and other stakeholders. PCCI's programs and services include enhancing business environment, SME development, environmental protection and management, corporate social responsibility, national and countryside development, business services, access to local and international training programs and scholarships. Publications. Breaking grounds with pioneering minds, PCCI is a dynamic force that offers its members fresh new ideas, new choices, and creative new approaches. From only a handful before the turn of the century, the PCCI family has grown to more than 1,600 direct members, more than 100 industry associations, more than 100 local chambers, and around 35,000 SMEs nationwide. To ensure alignment of its advocacies and activities, the PCCI works closely with government, other business groups, donor organizations, and international agencies, as well as the academe. The PCCI also provides a platform that links local firms with the global business community. PCCI also engages foreign chambers, diplomatic corps, international agencies in search of broader trade and economic cooperation. The Philippine Business Conference and Expo is the most important annual activity of the PCCI and one of the most prestigious events in the country. Local and foreign companies wanting to establish new ventures or seeking new markets find it highly attractive to attend due to the many benefits it offers. Every year, more than 800 stakeholders attend the conference, composed of key government officials, business leaders, diplomatic corps, foreign chambers, multilateral donor agencies, PCCI corporate members, bilateral business councils, local chamber and industry association leaders. With resourcefulness, ingenuity, collective ideas, and strength, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry remains steadfast in its principles of business growth and development. Pioneering, innovating, and trailblazing. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry will remain as that. One voice of business in the country.
Good morning, dear guests and attendees. This is Cybersecurity, the Law of the Land and the Way Forward, an exclusive hybrid event brought to you by Colliers Philippines with our major sponsors CoreBuild and Tayo Cash, in partnership with ABS-CBN News Channel, the Makati Business Club, the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, and the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Today's host and moderator is a multi-awarded journalist, news anchor, television presenter, and YouTube content creator with more than 20 years of experience in television and radio in the Philippines. She has won prestigious awards for broadcasting, including the Outstanding Young Men Award in 2008 and the Outstanding Women in the Nation Service Award in 2013. Her broadcasting career started as an investigative journalist, reporting and writing documentaries. Today, she can be seen daily on ANC's Head Start and TV Patrol. She has more than 3 million followers on Twitter and more than 1.4 million followers on YouTube as a social media influencer. Without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Ms. Karen Davila.
Hello, good morning everybody. Are you awake? Thank you. Good morning. It's such a privilege to be here today, and I have to say, I'm just so happy that Colliers had me back. I believe this is the third. Is this the third or fourth event that I've done for Colliers? So I want to thank you so much. So we're thrilled to bring together a diverse and accomplished group of professionals and leaders from various industries today. I do hope you'll all gain takeaways from our subject this morning. We have an exciting agenda today, insightful presentations, interactive discussions, plenty of opportunities to network and connect with other attendees as well. And before we get started, I want to give you a heads up. We have more than 200 attendees on Zoom. So those participating on Zoom, good morning to you too. And you can join our forum later and submit and in fact ask the questions yourselves. We're going to test the cybersecurity this morning and the interactiveness of today's event. So there will be a function in your control panel so our speakers and panelists can respond later on. Now, to formally start this event, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Kevin Hara, the Associate Director for Office Services, Tenant Representation of Colliers Philippines, to give us his opening remarks.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning to our distinguished guests, partners, and clients, and welcome to our event this morning. Today, we gather to discuss one of the most pressing issues relevant to all of us, cybersecurity. As we continue to rely more and more on technology in our daily lives, the need to secure a digital infrastructure becomes increasingly critical. The threat of cyber attacks looms large over governments, businesses, and individuals alike, and the potential consequences are dire. This is especially relevant in the Philippines. According to a report by Cisco, only 27% of companies in the Philippines have the capability to fend off cybersecurity threats that can disrupt operations. Then, according to the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, cybersecurity gaps could jeopardize 75% of the Philippines' $30 billion BPO market. So we thank you for your presence today, and we thank you for your recognition of this important topic. We have an impressive lineup of speakers today to discuss the latest trends, best practices, and insights. This is also an opportunity for us to come together, share ideas, and learn from the experts in the field of cybersecurity. It is our hope that today's discussions will not only increase our awareness of the challenges we face, but also offer practical solutions and strategies to tackle them. We invite everyone to engage in fruitful discussions and collaborate towards a safer and more secure digital future. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Now, cybersecurity has become a necessity for businesses of all sizes as their systems and networks containing sensitive data have become more vulnerable to cyber attacks. Our government and our private institutions have to work hand in hand and work hard to minimize the risks as we become increasingly interconnected through digitization. Our keynote speaker this morning is currently the Undersecretary for Special Concerns of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or the DICT. He worked as an associate at Esguerra de Jesus D. and Chico Law, where he handled litigation and corporate matters, particularly in tech-related and data privacy issues. In 2018, he became the Chief Legal Affairs Office at the China-Philippines United Enterprises Incorporated and eventually partner at the M & Associates law firm. He also served as the Chief Legal Officer of former House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez and Commission Attorney at the COMELEC. So to talk about the government's National Cybersecurity Program, or the NCSP, for 2023 to 2028 and the state of the cybersecurity landscape in the Philippines, please welcome Undersecretary Paul Joseph Mercado.
Thank you, Ma'am Karen, for that very great introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, good day. It is my pleasure to address to you today and share with you some important developments in cybersecurity in the Philippines. The Department of Information and Communications Technology is responsible for ensuring the safety and security of the country's critical information infrastructures, public and military networks, and the cyberspace in general. In line with this, the DICT has been working tirelessly to develop and implement effective cybersecurity measures that would protect our nation from cyber threats. So the Philippines faces a variety of cybersecurity such as ransomware, brute force, web attacks, data exfiltration, and servers are compromised. This may be through hacking, phishing, malware, ransomware, and all those cyber threats. These threats are constantly evolving, and attackers are becoming more sophisticated in their methods. The country is vulnerable to cyber attacks due to its growing digital economy and increasing dependence on technology. Additionally, many businesses and organizations in the Philippines do not have adequate cybersecurity measures in place. That's why I will present to you the current landscape of cybersecurity landscape in the Philippines. The Philippines ranks 61st out of 194 countries in the Global Security Index, CGI, published by the International Telecommunications Union in 2020. The GCI measures the commitment of countries to cybersecurity and their ability to protect against cyber threats. This ranking is affected by several factors, including cybersecurity strategy, the legal and regulatory framework, technical capacity, and cooperation with international partners. In the Philippines, we had made progress in improving its cybersecurity landscape in recent years, particularly in terms of the legal and regulatory framework. The Cyber Prevention Act of 2012 and the Data Privacy Act of 2012 provide us a legal framework for addressing cybercrime and protecting personal data. However, there are a lot of room for improvement in our cybersecurity posture. The country needs to invest more on cybersecurity education and training programs to develop a skilled workforce. And also, the government and the private organization also need to increase investment in cybersecurity technology to protect against cyber threats. We have in the DICT the Cybersecurity Bureau. The Cybersecurity Bureau was established in 2017 under the Department of Information and Communications Technology. The Bureau is responsible for leading efforts to improve the Philippine cybersecurity posture. Its mandate is to protect the government networks, critical infrastructure, the private sector from any cyber threats. The Bureau is responsible for developing and implementing cybersecurity policies and programs, conducting security assessments, and providing cybersecurity training and awareness to all. The Cybersecurity Bureau offers a range of services to the government and the agencies, as well as private sector's organization. These services include security assessments, incident response, vulnerability assessments, and security awareness trainings. I don't know if anyone has already engaged the DICT in testing their ICT infrastructure, but these are available. The cybersecurity works closely with the private sector, particularly the information and communications technology industry, to improve the cybersecurity landscape. And we do this by doing roundtable discussions with the BPO, and these are regularly conducted for this purpose. Overall, the DICT Cybersecurity Bureau is an important organization in the Philippines' effort to improve cybersecurity posture. the Bureau plays a critical role in protecting the country's critical infrastructure and private sector from cyber threats and implementing the National Cybersecurity Plan. In 2022, the National Computer Emergency Response Team, or the CERT-PH, under the DICT Cybersecurity Bureau, responded to 1,129 incidents from CII sectors, including government and emergency service, academe, and the telcos. Incident response activities include on-site and remote responses, investigation, including the collection of logs and other artifacts, deployment of malware removal tool and mobile SOC, and the provision of recommendations, for example, such as patch system, harden the asset configuration, and for the system to go under VAPT testing based on the result of each investigations. So here, the most common incidents handled by the DICT are malware and malicious files comprising of 48.9% of the incident, data exfiltration and data leak, which makes up 12.5%, and compromised website system comprising of 12.4% incidents. The most targeted assets are websites, web servers, and application systems with database. So the most affected sectors, based on our records, are the government and emergency services, which makes up to 60.4% of incidents, the academe, 16.6%, and the telecommunication, which makes up for 7.6% of the incidents.
Excuse me po. May inas po ako na
So the cyber threat monitoring is an essential aspect of cybersecurity, as it enables organizations to detect and respond to potential cyber threats before they can cause any significant damage. Cyber threats are constantly evolving and becoming more and more sophisticated, making it essential for organizations to monitor their network for potential threats. Sharing information about sharing information, organizations can learn about new threats and vulnerabilities and take a proactive step to protect their networks. For the year 2022, there was a total of 2,391 reported threat incidents, 100% of which were endorsed to the agencies and incident response teams for further action. So what do? We verify, we ensure it's secured, and we implement and undergo investigation. Cyber threat monitoring and information sharing are critical components of cybersecurity by monitoring for potential threats and sharing information with other organizations. These are the annual cybersecurity drills and exercises. As I've said earlier, part of the mandate of the DICT is to provide everyone with the information and the education in order for us to be prepared for these cyber attacks. So we have the CERT-PH Cyber Incident Drill done last 2022. It's a 3-day online activity which aims to solidify cybersecurity awareness and instill knowledge and confidence to our stakeholders. We also have National Cyber Drill 2022, which is a continuous commitment of the DICT for a robust country's capacity to respond to any cyber attack. All of these are, it can be found in our website if any one of you would want to join these events. Happening this 2023 is the Hackagov. Hacking competitions facilitated by the government can be an effective way to promote cybersecurity awareness and education. By encouraging participants to test their hacking skills against vulnerable systems, governments can help develop a pool of skilled cybersecurity professionals who can help to protect critical infrastructure and private sector organizations. This year, the CERT-PH will be conducting this Hack for Gov, which aims to increase the pace of developing cyber proficient students and engage them to take the path of cybersecurity to increase the nation's pool of cyber proficient individuals. So interested participants may submit their letter of intent and curriculum vitae via Facebook page of the Philippine National CERT. It's facebook.com/ncert.gov.ph. Hacking competition can also encourage innovations in the cybersecurity industry. Participants are often given the opportunity to test new tools and techniques and develop novel solutions to the cybersecurity challenges. This can help to drive advancement in the field and promote the development of new cybersecurity technologies. Overall, this hacking competition facilitated by the government can be an effective way to promote cybersecurity education and awareness, encourage innovation, support research and development, build relations, and enhance cybersecurity capabilities. For the DICT's legislative agenda, one of the key priorities of the DICT is to strengthen the country's cybersecurity infrastructure. This includes investing in new technologies, upgrading existing infrastructure, and developing new policies and procedures to protect the critical systems and networks. There are two priority bills right now. It's, I think, with the Senate. It is the Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Act, which requires all government to adopt the ISO standards on information security and data information, and as well as the Cybersecurity Act, which is the strengthening of the previous NSAC, the National Cybercrime Interagency Council, which will deal basically on all the cyber threats attacking the country. These bills take into account that legislative agenda on cybersecurity in the Philippines should focus on strengthening cybersecurity infrastructure, enhancing information sharing, protecting the critical information infrastructure, strengthening cybercrime laws, promoting cybersecurity education and awareness, and supporting international collaboration and cooperation. By prioritizing these areas, the country can take proactive steps to improve its overall cybersecurity posture and protects its citizens, businesses, and critical infrastructure from any cyber threats. Another key priority for the CERT-PH is the capability enhancement is to strengthen the organization response capabilities. Currently, we utilize available technology to speed up investigation. The CERT-PH intends to provide assistance in monitoring after recovery from cyber attacks. Some of the requirements of CERT-PH is to have remote gathering of artifacts from the affected organization. This involves developing new procedures for identifying and responding to cyber threats, vulnerability assessment, and penetration testing, cyber threat monitoring and information sharing, and security and operation centers. To improve this, CERT-PH ability to detect and respond to cyber threats, efforts also focus on enhancing threat intelligence capabilities. So we are moving from a defensive stance to more on a proactive stance, whereby we will be procuring tools that can detect and even recover data that was lost during cyber incidents. CERT-PH capability enhancement effort focus on strengthening response capabilities by utilizing technology, improving escalation and response procedure, enhancing threat intelligence capabilities by widening the coverage of current resources, building a skilled workforce, improving collaboration with stakeholders, and investing in new technologies such as modern threat detection and capability response. So what's next for the DICT? Today, I am proud to announce that DICT is embarking on the development of the new National Cybersecurity Plan that will address more complex threats and enhance our ability to respond to them before, during, and after attacks. The new plan, which will cover the period of 2023 to 2028, builds on the gains and lessons learned from the previous plan and aims to strengthen the nation's cybersecurity posture by nurturing an agile and robust cybersecurity ecosystem. For the information of everyone, the previous National Cybersecurity Plan 2022 centered on the protection of critical infrastructure, government agencies, business and supply chains, and individuals. So right now for the 2023, we will be focusing more on the individuals, considering that most of us right now are really using technology in our everyday lives. The Philippines' next cybersecurity plan focused on strengthening critical infrastructure also, enhancing cybersecurity education and awareness to all, developing a comprehensive national cybersecurity strategy, improving incident response capability, and strengthening the cybercrime laws. Because we believe that from the defensive stance, right now, we have to be proactive. It's not only that we do defense, but at the same time, we should have that capability to attribute the cyber attacks to the perpetrators so that it can be a deterrent to all the wrongdoers out there. The DICT, though, recognizes that the cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, and we are committed to working with all of you, the stakeholders, from the public and private sectors, to ensure that our nation's cybersecurity posture is strong and resilient. In conclusion, I would like to again express my gratitude to all the stakeholders and partners who have been supporting the DICT cybersecurity efforts. I am confident that with our collective efforts, we will be able to address the cybersecurity challenges facing our nation and secure a brighter future for all Filipinos. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Better. Okay, everybody. Are you awake? Are you okay? All right. Now, this is a topic that's actually relevant and important to all of us. I mean, of course, the conversations we're having is about country cybersecurity, the government being hacked. But let's face it, have you ever had your credit card? Tell me, have you ever checked your bill and you had credit card spending that was actually in other countries that you've never spent? Have you experienced that? That's cybersecurity. I have had to change my credit card maybe 2 or 3 times because there were strange expenses in parts of Europe that I had never been. So that is cybersecurity. Another thing, have you ever wondered where all your data goes when it comes to your cell phone? Have you had friends tell you, don't text because they print out all your texts? Have you heard that? That's why you should do Telegram or Signal, etc., because it's more secure. So really, when you think about it, cybersecurity affects all of us. Or things like, do you ever wonder if your emails can be read? Or ito na lang talaga eh, if your texts are really printed out as they claim. I have asked Ernest Koo, even MVP at one point, is that true? And of course, it's not true, Karen. But we often wonder, how far can things go, right? Your credit card, your cell phone, your email, when you write down your data. I think we were talking about it in 2016, the COMELEC leak. How important was that COMELEC leak? It released all the data of the voters, where you lived. I don't know if how many times you voted, but personal things about you that could actually be used by politicians during campaigns. So think about it. Every single office has a database, and there is so much money spent on protecting that database. In the olden times, we would say, you can't have my Rolodex. That's my black book. These are my contacts. But today, data is everything. Data is knowledge, and data is wealth. So you know why this topic is important? Because, okay, in January 2022, 95 million Filipinos were on Facebook. And to think we're 110 million Filipinos, 95 million were on Facebook. According to the Digital 2023 Global Overview Report, Filipinos rank third in the world for the most time spent online. Every single day, there are 85 million internet users in the Philippines out in January 2023. So with a population of 110, just think of the 20 that has no access to the internet or are too young to use the internet, and 85 million are on the internet. Filipinos spend a daily average of, and this is why many of you may not have a social life, 9 hours, 14 minutes of internet usage a day. Did you know that the global average of internet use is only 6 hours? So you have to get off Facebook. That's number one. So, but why? It's not just Facebook. Filipinos utilize e-commerce platforms. We shop, right? Online shopping in the Philippines has become very big. In fact, you have main offices of Lazada already here and also Shopee. Online streaming, which accounts for a bulk of the internet use. You have platform streaming services like View, also making a killing right now with their new projects, virtual work arrangements, etc., and many other things. So clearly, we need to know where we are, and the 61st ranking all over the world. I mean, let's face it, we should do better. All right? So let's call in our panelists. I'd like to call in again the ICT Undersecretary Mercado. Please join us. And our next panelist, we have the Head of Data Privacy, Cybersecurity, and AI Initiatives at the Goriseta Africa, Cauton and Saavedra, a dual qualified lawyer under Philippine and the New York Bar. I'm impressed. That's hard to pass. He has his law firm Special Projects Practice Group. Let's call in right now Attorney Edsel Tupaz. So, Undersecretary Mercado, you can take the seat over there. And Attorney Edsel, you can take the seat. Our next panelist is the country manager of Trend Micro Philippines Business Unit. He oversees the whole commercial business operation of Trend Micro in the Philippines. He handles the distributors and channels ecosystem as well. He works with Trend Labs APAC support system. More than 20 years experience working in the IT industry. He's accumulated a full range of IT needs specialization. Hardware, software, systems integration, and services. Let's welcome Mr. Ian Felipe. All right, and joining our discussion is, at some point, we've all owned a MasterCard, had a MasterCard, have been billed by MasterCard. So we have with us, he is the Director in MasterCard Data and Services Cybersecurity Practice. This is 13 years of experience in cybersecurity. He's an expert in cybersecurity strategy and transformation, technology risk management, regulatory compliance, data protection, privacy, advanced security testing. Please, let's welcome, and not only that, they have clients, he has clients all over the ASEAN region. Please welcome Mr. Fred Yap. Welcome, Fred. Hi. All right. So let me start first, because we just already came from a discussion with the DICT. I'll start first with somebody private and individual, so everybody can relate. All right. I've just talked about I'll move here so they can see you. Okay. Everybody in the room has had some kind of experience with security fraud with their credit card, being billed for something they have not bought, right? it's just not a MasterCard issue, it's a bank issue, Visa's experiences, Amex, everybody. But what has MasterCard done to tighten its cybersecurity measures to protect the consumers?
Right, that's a good question, and thank you everyone for coming here today. Very good turnout. I see everyone here is very energetic. Thank you. So I think before that, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Fred. I'm a Malaysian. I think my colleague has in the past said that my name sounds a bit like Filipino, but I'm a Malaysian. But nevertheless, I like to say this, right? Masaya ako at nakabalik, ako ulit dito.
Galing!
Thank you. Thank you.
Mahirap yun, ah.
Thank you.
Oo,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I think from the perspective of Mastercard, being the payment processor itself, we take cybersecurity very seriously. So being the top payment processor, we are under attack almost every single day, and that's why security is paramount to us. And we would like to make sure that our security, internal security, is top notch, which means that we are defending against the cyber attack so that it doesn't go into the payment network and then it compromises the payment ecosystem. So that is always has been our stand here. And in terms of then pivoting towards securing the payment ecosystem, that is where I think Mastercard, where I come from, is the consulting piece, where we would like to share with the governments, the merchants, acquirers, issuers, and so forth, how have we been doing in the past when it comes to cybersecurity. So we'd like to share with them our best practices and so forth. So even within the ASEAN region as well, we do have capabilities around cybersecurity space as well. And we have also been organizing conferences. We do have that safety and security summit where we do share with all the our clients and customers here in Philippines as well, right? What are the practices when it comes to authorization, fraud management, chargeback, and also as well cybersecurity in this aspect here.
But just very quickly, what's the first line of defense when it comes to cybersecurity internally? I mean, of course, as a customer, we do have our own steps, right, to be protected. But what does MasterCard do?
So I think the basic, I think when we talk about cybersecurity, the first line of defense has always been us, as the employees itself, right? So we got to make sure that, we adhere to the cybersecurity policy within the organization itself and making sure that we comply to all the policies that's set forth by the organization. Because we always say, cybersecurity, the human is always the weakest link. So therefore, we as the employees, we make sure that, we practice what we preach, and we make sure that we put in security measures and we protect the interests of Mastercard in this aspect here, right? So I think that goes to all all the participants here, right? I think Paul Mercado actually mentioned earlier on, it's a responsibility of everyone here. So we got to therefore make sure that we play our role in terms of building that secure ecosystem, focusing on cybersecurity.
That's very good and very practical. The human is the first. That's the weakest link there. So that's the first line of security when it comes to MasterCard. I wanted to talk to Attorney Edsel Tupaz now of Goriseta Law. And would it be fair to say Goriseta Law is number one when it comes to... But I want to be honest here. Mark Goriseta is my relative, okay? But I did not invite them because of me. I just saw him here. All right. So, but is it fair that Goriseta Law is the front runner right now in handling cybersecurity issues?
Well, with pardonable pride.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen, for that. But our firm did win data privacy and protection. So data protection and cybersecurity are fused under data privacy principles. Law Firm of the Year in 2021 under Thomson Reuters Philippine Law Awards. So that's a maiden award. Very proud of being able to accomplish this for the community.
What kind of cases has Goriseta Law handled and won? Some cases you can talk about that essentially were big cybersecurity issues for companies.
Yeah, really good question. We have handled, thankfully, it was there were positive outcomes also out of court, right? Social media incidents, right? So influencers, personalities who are either the victim or maybe sometimes the attacker, right? We've also handled high stakes, typical cybersecurity cases like illegal access, misuse of devices, typically defined under the Cybercrime Prevention Act. So, but I think more cases now really under the firm has been under social media. And we have yet to see a test case on, at least on our end, for phishing, and smishing. So,
Can you explain it? I mean, not all of us are experts. Phishing and smishing.
so smishing is an SMS-driven, what they call it, social engineering, where they trick you into providing your passkeys and other, sensitive personal information so that you can reveal your identity, and that the malicious attacker will use that to, steal your bank account or your other identity identifiers to access, let's say, your Lazada or Shopee site, right? So that is a day-to-day happening. Many of it goes unpunished because maybe of the frequency and the volume, and I'm sure all of us can talk about it. All of us do receive these messages almost on a daily basis. And so I think this really requires a whole of society approach, not just the court system, but everybody else.
Okay, but you've also handled the Comelec data breach. Is that correct?
We were involved on a stakeholder engagement. So some of our lawyers were engaged in public consultation, but it was really more of a government effort to resolve the leak.
Okay, so coming from Attorney Edsel, Undersecretary Mercado, what is the government doing with all the smishing and the texts we're getting that if you actually click this link, I know it's lessened. It has actually lessened because I used to get, I would have to say maybe 20 texts a day but I still get gambling texts until now.
Actually, that's the problem with those kinds of attack. We cannot really block them from doing it. But
Why not? Why not?
Because we still don't have the tools in doing that. We have to talk to the private telcos in order for them to block those numbers that include. But it's hard to determine. So that's why what the government is doing right now is institutionalizing policies which can lessen that kind of actions from the perpetrators. And one is the SIM card Registration Act. And I think the reason why it was lessened now was because of the passage of that act. And before that passage of that act, if you can notice, there's an influx of those kinds of attacks because it's the last day that they can do it without being caught. So I think it's on the government side, we are still trying to get all the best practices in different areas to get the best tools. We are still in our infancy stage. But on the policy side, I think we can strengthen it by passing well thought of laws that can deter this practice from the perpetrators.
So moving forward, do you believe that it's really new laws, that will increase our rankings when it comes to cybersecurity protection?
Well, based on the GCI, we are okay with the laws. In fact, we're, I think, 15 out of 20 in the GCI ranking. We have laws in place, but the execution of that laws, how do we interpret that laws? I think this arena, the cybersecurity landscape is really young, that we need to educate everyone first so that in implementing that law, even the government that will execute that law could understand. Right now, we have efforts to get all the cybersecurity experts here in the Philippines. However, it is really subject to several limitations.
Like what?
And one example maybe is the salary. It's really hard to get qualified cybersecurity experts in the Philippines. By the way, I'm a lawyer by profession. In fact, I'm still learning this cybersecurity industry. It's a challenge for the government to do that. In fact, I think right now there's a passage of the E-Governance Act And in that passage is the creation of a GOCC. And maybe with that, we can answer the problem on the salary of our cybersecurity expert. We are thinking about that.
Okay, I want to thank you for that. Now, Mr. Ian Felipe of Trend. So, remote and hybrid working setups, it's already actually encouraged right now after the pandemic. But what measures should traditional companies take to protect sensitive information from being compromised by cyber attacks? And also, let's talk about online businesses. Okay.
Okay, Karen, let me address that coming from three perspectives. One, as a user, whether you are an online seller or buyer. Number two, as an individual company, what do you do to protect your data? And third would be, in general, what is the best practice that should be done by the companies? If you are, first, as a user, as an individual, if you are, of course, all of us are guilty. We're buying online, especially during the pandemic.
Hanggang ngayon.
Hanggang ngayon. Tama ka. Hanggang ngayon. So whether it's local or abroad. Now, one thing that we should understand and be aware of is that before we do that online transaction, before you put your data, your credit card information, your address, your mobile number, you have to make sure, we have to make sure that our mobile phones, gadgets, laptop, desktop, iPads, tablets have the basic security solution.
What do you mean?
The antivirus for your gadget. If you don't put that, then that is most likely, you are most likely vulnerable for any phishing or attacks.
Wait a second. I mean, I don't know this. How do I know if my phone has an antivirus?
Oh, you will have to check on your mobile, or you will have to install an antivirus for your mobile.
Where do I get that?
Trend Micro, number one, of
I mean,
course.
are you serious?
But seriously,
Wait,
we have a lot
no,
of
like a
course.
regular mobile, like
Yes.
my cell phone.
Yes.
I have to install.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
I
One
don't
of the
think anybody has that installed here.
I hope not everyone, but I hope some of you are already looking into that, because that is very critical. Karen, when you
Really?
use your mobile,
All the time.
yeah, you use your mobile all the time, buying, communicating, emailing,
Instagramming, yeah,
everything.
Facebooking, everything.
So this is something that I want to share. We are sharing to everyone that we have to protect our own gadgets.
Wait, how? I'm really in shock.
There are
No
online.
one's ever told me about that.
Oh, I'm happy that I'm the first
Yeah.
one.
I'm sure the room too.
But yes, we have to do that. We have to, especially for your kids, for your families, when they're doing online, right? The kids who are accessing their laptops without any protection, if that, I'm sure IT professionals know this already, but at least for the public consumption, that's what we are trying to share with everyone.
But who's an IT professional in the room? Baka kayong apat lang. Wait. You know, my husband, I mean, this is funny. He likes to tape. DJ likes to tape the camera on the laptop. Are you serious? Because I said, but the camera's not on. He said, but still, you never know.
Yep.
It could be hacked and someone could be watching you. Even if the camera's off. Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Are you serious?
That's true, Karen. So that's why in our laptops sa bahay, may mga
We have a
cover
tape.
yan. Yeah.
No, he put some masking tape.
Okay. There is a magnet that, it's like
Yeah.
a window. You close it and you open it whenever you use it.
But it can be used. It
Can be done. It can happen. It can happen. So that's one of the things that you need to remember. Now, as a company,
Okay, so
internal,
first gadget protect.
Gadget protect.
Okay.
Second, as a company, if you are a company to protect your data, one of the things that we do internally as a Trend Micro, we do label our data, our information, like the sensitivity of the data, whether it's for public consumption that you can share publicly, whether it's internal and confidential, or whether it's targeted for a particular recipient only. And that happens during the email. Whenever you send email, there's a button that you need to click. What kind of email is this? Is this okay to be shared to publicly, like other recipients out of your network from your company, or internal? So that with this kind of labeling of data, it somehow gives more protection to your information, that we try to avoid data breach. Kasi when you don't do that, when you send email, accidentally you press somebody or you send the that
Yeah.
file with all
Yeah.
this confidential information, and easily it can be accessed by everyone, especially the hackers, the bad guys. And that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
protect our data from.
Can you like take back an email you've sent?
Yes, we can.
You can?
You can. There are parameters where we can do that as well.
Okay, and then third.
The third one, as a company, as a best practice, you will have to have, one of the strategies is to have a multi-layered protection. It's not just one. You have antivirus on your endpoint, you have firewall, and that's it. You will have to have layers of protection. You protect your desktop, laptops, mobile for your employees. You protect your email so that nobody will send you, or if somebody sends you a phishing email, then it can be detected and protect you from phishing emails. The network, what is happening inside the network of your company, whether you have to have layers of protection that can detect what is happening inside.
Yeah.
Because one thing that you cannot protect you from is no visibility of what is happening inside.
Yeah.
You can only protect what you can see. If you don't have appropriate solutions that can detect all this, then it would be very prone to all these attacks and cyber attacks.
And this is important for all companies. If you're a hospital, for example, data in big hospitals, St. Luke's, Makati Med, that's one. Also, let's say in retail,
Yes.
if you're SM, all of this.
Definitely. I would say cybersecurity is very important in no particular industry. This is important to all those who are handling data. If you're handling a customer's data, information, credit card, address, telephone number of your employees or of your customers, then you are responsible to take care of this data.
Okay, my gosh, I think that deserves a clap because we all learned something new today as a consumer.
Thank
But
you, Karen.
yes, Fred. So I wanted to ask you, based on your experience in MasterCard, so number one, hearing this, what is the common mistake of customers like myself, everybody in the room? Do we play a role into our credit card being hacked? Based on your experience.
I think it does, play a certain role into the fraud happening. So I think like what Ian Felipe said earlier on, right? So your device, making sure it's secure. It's making sure that it's secure, right? So that's number one. I think number two is that being a user ourselves, we got to make sure that we spot what is suspicious and having that common sense built in.
You spot it. Yeah, MasterCard.
So MasterCard, I think we would like to educate people, right, around the space of, spotting, suspicious, how do we deem something that is suspicious transactions, and how do you go about dealing with it. But within our network itself, we do have those solutions, and we do have, measures in place to detect, some of those suspicious transactions that's happening within the network itself. But again, I think I would like to say that the first point has always been the consumer themselves, making sure that you practice, safe online shopping and so forth. Yeah.
But what kind of protection or security controls has MasterCard set in place for mobile, online banking applications, and how do you protect against fraud and identity theft? So there are technically 4 questions there. So first, the security controls for mobile and online banking.
Okay, so we do not produce mobile application ourselves for MasterCard. So that's typically done by the banks themselves, right? So when it comes to securing those internet banking or mobile applications in general, right? I think one of the key points is that, like what Ian Felipe has mentioned earlier on, layered defenses across the whole entire ecosystem, right? So the first and foremost form of layered defense here would be doing it, what we call secure by design or privacy by design. So when we build an app, we imbue that concept, right? So it's secure from the way we built it. So when the moment we put it down into pen and paper and say that we are going to build this app, so what are the security measures that we need to put in? Right, all the way to building it. So when we are building the application itself, we make sure that we put in measures in place to secure our source code, and it's not leaked out to others as well. Then as we go along, we test it and making sure that it's secure before we launch it to the public. So this is what we meant by layered defenses. Then along the way, there is also other measures that we can put in place as well. Securing our technology infrastructure, right? And also making sure that, for our mobile application, there is also layered defenses in there, like for example, security wrapper, making sure that, an attacker could not get hold of the mobile application and then study it, reverse engineering, and creating a fake app out of it.
Yes, yeah.
That is one of it, right? And last but not least, I would say is that we start monitoring, for the banks itself or other organizations, monitoring if there's any fake apps out there that's trying to mimic the app that you have developed, and making sure that you work with the regulators to take it down as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So Fred, clearly regulation is very important when it comes to cyber security. Before I go to Undersecretary Mercado, Attorney Edsel, being a cyber security lawyer and your experience in the Philippines, wait, by the way, why didn't you work in New York? You passed the New York bar. Why aren't you there?
I was unfortunately kicked out by the financial crisis in the United States.
Okay.
I'm not a
But
U.S.
you're
citizen.
No, wait, but you weren't kicked out
Well,
by anyone.
no.
Not
It was
literally.
not by immigration.
Yeah.
But I did have a small law firm in Long Island for a few years.
Yeah. And then, okay, so moving forward, because cybersecurity, if you were lawyering now there, that would be extremely, also profitable, because it's a big U.S. Issue, even with a budget, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the posture there is not to look at cybersecurity as a cost item, but rather as a value enhancing
Correct.
endeavor. Like especially for verticals who look at data as value, as part of your asset base. The more you protect your data, the more you can showcase. You have resilient measures, security measures, organizational, physical, and technical security measures. The more valuable your company is, the more trustworthy it is among your customers, the more you can sell your services and goods to the public.
How can a cybersecurity lawyer like yourself help companies mitigate risk and limit potential liability? And did you have challenges in terms of the cases that you've tried with the laws in the country?
Yeah, excellent.
So first is really the role of a cybersecurity lawyer.
Yeah, excellent. I think we go by the adage, prevention is better than cure. So prevention. I'd like to turn your attention to what we call the 5 pillars of compliance and accountability, more popularized by the National Privacy Commission. But I think it's really an ISMS standard by ISO and ISC, where the first pillar out of 5 would be to appoint a data protection advocate. Under the NPC, it's what we call the data protection officer, who will guide.
In the office?
In the office, okay. Yeah. Could be outsourced. Like me, I serve as a data protection officer for NASDAQ 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, and leading startups. The second thing, so you have the advocate, right? The second pillar would be to conduct what we call an internal risk assessment of the impact of your data processing systems upon privacy and upon your information infrastructure, right? So in the NPC or data privacy parlance, it would be called the privacy impact assessment. And then you come up with your risk, residual risk upon institutional measures, and then you come up with your own recommendation. Better to have this by an independent entity. The third pillar would be to implement, design and implement, and privacy by design is very important here. What we call your information security management system, or under data privacy parlance, it's what we call the privacy management program. So the whole gamut of policies, notices, statements that you see on websites, documentation, consent forms, a lot of evidence, documentary evidence there, a lot of awareness training as well. So that's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is what we call third-party risk management, right? So a lot of businesses here rely on outsourced services. So you got to be able to police, audit your third-party service providers. Because under the Data Privacy Act, the Data Privacy Act, the controller of data will not be able to relieve oneself of liability by simply appointing or outsourcing activities to a processor. So you will still be held accountable for the mishaps of your delegate, of your master slave, right? The last but not least, they're all equally important, is to come up with a really good incident response management team. So incident response. And if the stakes are very high, these guys could form part of your overall crisis management committee. So breach awareness, monitoring of security incidents. I think it was said by Ian that you won't know if something exists if you don't know if you are able to. If you don't know that it exists, then how can you report it? How could you remediate? And then, of course, under the law, we have mandatory notifications. So if you're a company, you suffer from a cyber attack that involves, let's say, sensitive personal information, you ought to take steps to notify all your affected data subjects, like you and me, right? Consumers, users of your platform, right? And also to notify the regulator within a time-sensitive period of 72 hours. If you don't do that, then the consequences could be a lot worse in terms of penalties and in terms of consumer fallout.
Yeah. And attorney, I'm curious, in the Philippines, based on the profiles that you've done, no, do MSMEs invest in cybersecurity, or are we talking about companies that actually already have an income of $100 million up? I mean, in the Philippine setting to, like, do MSMEs pay attention to cybersecurity as much as they should? Because it sounds expensive too. I mean, is it?
Absolutely, it's very daunting if you read it. But what's great is, like, regulators like the ICT, the NPC are really good at proportionality assessment. So if they look at your security measures, they look at whether it's appropriate and reasonable. So the law actually uses those two terms, whether your security measures, are appropriate and reasonable to the circumstances.
Yeah.
However, there is an objective standard. So let's say your platform is a social media platform. You have 1 million users, but you're not earning any money. Regulators will turn a blind eye to revenue, but will look at how your platform, your business model, is adversely affecting data subjects, right? And they will fine you accordingly. And
Do you have an example of this? I'm just curious if it's existed.
Which one? Like a
that
platform
what you just said, yeah. It has 1 million engagement, it doesn't earn money.
Yeah, without disclosing so much,
Yeah.
The popularity of what we call influencer idol platforms, where you have like, celebrities who would post their brands. You have a lot of users there. So we've encountered, in a no-name basis, like
and they've been faked. They're being used in fake advertising too.
Yeah, that would be mis advertising. That would be fraud as well. Yeah, so it could amount to a cybersecurity issue.
Actually, I wanted to share. I mean, we're gonna go on a bigger scale, and we're gonna open the floor to the audience, so you can stand up, have questions, and those on Zoom, you can participate. But I wanted to share, like, sometime last year. So trolling in the Philippines, and trolling has come to a levels that's just, I would like to compare it, but unprecedented levels. And it all started with political trolling. And there came a point in my life, even as a journalist, so the most trolled female journalists in the Philippines are Maria Ressa and myself for a certain period of time, because you can actually track the comments through algorithm. You can find them, you can count them per hour. And I remember there was a period in my life, my professional life, that I actually felt so helpless and hopeless, because there were lies being spread about me on social media by certain vloggers or people or accounts. And I felt, being a journalist, I'm a good sport. You can criticize my work. You can say I'm bad at what I do, or it's up to you, right? But it got to a point that it was damaging to my reputation. Already, one of my kids asked me about something that was spreading. That was, I would like to find the right word, but it was below the belt. And when one of my kids asked me, "Mom, this has been spreading," and we often think, the office, ABS would often tell me, "Oh, we looked at the traction, it's so small, that's not gonna get anywhere." But the problem is, there's still somebody reading it and seeing it. So when one of my kids asked me, I actually called Mark and I said, I really don't know what to do. What to do with these accounts. There's just so many accounts saying I did this for my career. I'm a paid this, is made up corruption issues, sexual issues, name all the issues. And I felt I can't just sit here and watch this. The fact that, because I was told by the office, you just ignore it. But when one of my sons, since I have two kids, asked me, I called Mark and said, can something be done? And just to let you know how difficult it is. So Mark referred me, they have a division in their office. Edsel, what's the division? It's a
Cybercrime,
They-
litigation and cybercrime.
So they have a litigation and cybercrime division. So he gave me one of his experts. But do you know that you would need someone to dig up all the IP, is that the right term? IP addresses of every single lie that has been told about you. So I had to hire someone to get all the IP addresses, and it came out to over tama IP addresses because I don't know how to do. I can't remember, over 200 plus. It took days. And then it was submitted to Mark's office. When it was submitted, they had to write to Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. And I realized, what if you don't have that capacity? What do you do? Let's say a lie's been spread about you. What do you do, right? I mean, a really damaging one that could affect your family, your career, something wherein you may not be hired for another job, hypothetically. What do you do if you're an individual? Where I'm going to go to the DICT after this. Because I had to go to a lawyer, and it took time, and all the pages disappeared. But it needed a law firm, right? So there was a part of me that actually became very frustrated, with protection in the Philippines. So moving now to the undersecretary. Yes.
Actually, this is part of the effort
Okay.
of the DICT
Ito na lang.
in partnership with the CICC, the Cybercrime Investigation Coordinating Council. In fact, it's here in the PNOC building. We created this cyber crime hub where all the private sectors, all government agencies can go there, collaborate, get information, can file their complaints there. In fact, there's also a number. I'll message you later.
You
The
can announce
hotline.
it, yeah.
Actually, I
But
forgot
do you
the
have the people? I mean, you have the
We have the
people, you have the
people.
manpower.
Actually, the CICC, I've been with them. In fact, we went to this agency. I will not tell anymore. And I agree, ma'am. It's really a forensics. It's something. It's like there's a dead body there that you have to investigate each and every aspect, and you have to do logical thinking. If this, then this is the results. And we have the capacity. The government has that through the CICC, especially if the cyber attacks equates into a crime. As compared to what we are in the DICT right now, we are the tools, the protector, the defenders. The CICC will attribute the attacks to the perpetrators. So it is in collaboration with the two agencies, and for enforcement side, the PNP and the NBI. It is within the workings of these agencies that we hope and we try to resolve all the cyber attacks in the Philippines. As to the prosecution, of course, it will be in the DOJ. We collect the data, even the law firms in the private sector, we collect the data, submit it to the prosecution, and the prosecution will prosecute.
For fear of being impertinent, I was going to say, Karen, you get your MasterCard to buy Trend Micro products and services. Then you hire a lawyer to file a case with the DICT.
Correct.
That's
the
the
simple
quick solution.
But I have a MasterCard, so yeah. I
Good lineup, Colliers. Thank you.
By the way, I'll message the organizer, the number, the hotline of the CICC Cybercrime Hub for all complaints. We trained call centers agents there who can
Yes.
respond readily. Because I think the problem before is when you call the complaint center of the DICT or the CICC, the one who will respond does not know what to
Yes.
answer. So we do trainings for
And
that.
Filipinos, don't get me wrong, we tend to be cynical. We're like, come on, they're really not going to act on my complaint, right?
Yeah.
You know, we think that way about government. I mean, if it's like a private company, it's like MasterCard, or you'll think, they're going to act on this because I'm a customer. So that's also, there's a trust issue there.
Yeah, but this is really a new project
Yeah.
for the agency. It was started maybe November last year. It's really new. It's still a work in progress. We are still training the people, but at least we have someone to call
Yeah.
whenever there are attacks like this.
Yeah. So, guys, I hope, are you enjoying the conversation? I hope so. The floor is open to questions. Please. There are brilliant people in the room. Don't be shy. Go ahead, sir. There's a microphone right there. So can you please share your name and we'll steal all your data. I'm kidding.
I'll give a false name. My name is Attorney Sixto Antonio. I'm a member of the Tayo Cash team, who's the sponsor for this event. I think my question involves with the DICT, USEC Mercado. There are third-party vendors who are offering services involving cybersecurity, involving VAPT. Of course, it involves a lot of trust for companies to rely on them. Is there an accreditation process or a certification process that we can look at to be able to trust and use these third-party suppliers?
Great question.
That's a very good question, sir. In fact, when I entered the DICT, it's one of the things that the Assistant Secretary Jeffrey D. and I talked about. Currently, what we have is we just acknowledge that this third party are acknowledging. It's not really a certification, but right now we are developing this MC to really accredit. I'll flex the muscle of Assistant Secretary Jeff D. for the cybersecurity. He's really an expert and a CISSP passer who knows this stuff. And we are developing that MC right now to accredit third-party providers for VAPT testing. If there are no third-party providers right now, you go to the DICT and we'll do the VAPT testing for you.
But we will have accreditation. I'm curious.
We will do that.
The number one on your list in the rankings was Singapore.
Singapore.
Kanina, no?
Yeah.
Do they have accreditation?
They have
That's why.
accreditation. Yeah.
Did you want to add something, Fred?
Yeah, I think I was just in Singapore last week, right? So I was told that yes, in Singapore they do, for any cybersecurity services provider, they do have to be acknowledged or accredited by the government. So I think that is something that is, if let's say the Philippine government is working on it, it's certainly a very good initiative. But also, I believe there are certain accreditation organizations out there. There is like very specialized in the areas of penetration testing, right? Say for example, CREST, is one of the organizations that accredits cybersecurity providers, specializing in doing advanced security testing. So perhaps those are the organizations that could be looked upon as a reference, not as a absolute source of truth, but as a reference to selecting an appropriate cybersecurity service provider. Yeah.
Okay, hold your thought because we have more questions. Thank you for that, sir. That was very good. It reveals what state we're in right now and what steps we need to do. It's not just laws, right? We're a country where we have the best laws, right? Okay, but let's move on. We have a question from Zoom. Okay, I'm excited about this. I want to see how Colliers is going to do this. Okay, a question from Zoom. Once again, maybe we can have a lot of people answer this. For USEC Mercado, how can we require all companies to comply with cybersecurity prevention measures, such as requiring all employees to undergo training? So let's do this quickly so all of you can participate. USEC.
Well, as you know, the DICT is not really only about cybersecurity and technology. We also provide upskilling, so we educate. In fact, part of our efforts is really to create this ICT Academy in Valenzuela owned by the DICT in order to teach each and every the public proper cyber hygiene, and even for those who want a high level, we collaborate also with computer schools such as AMA, and hopefully we go to the big schools like UP, Ateneo, and the likes. As to these questions, can we require all companies to comply? As I've said earlier, there is this CII law that is with the Senate right now. In that CII law, it requires all companies to comply with the basic standards under the ISO when it comes to information security and data protection. Correct.
Yeah.
So I think it's not it's part of the efforts of the government to do that, to instill those measures. But we are hoping that this law will be passed in the near future.
Okay, but before Edsel, Ian, you want to add something now?
No, actually,
Yeah,
I was about
please.
to add something a while ago.
Please
to
go ahead.
security.
Yeah, yeah.
No, in terms, I'm just happy to hear that DICT is doing something in terms of accreditation, because that's very critical for all the companies who will do and ask and
Yeah.
need penetration testing, vulnerability, everything that for as of now, while there is still no accreditation, I just want to remind everybody that choosing the right partner is very important. You don't engage with a company because they started now, they have two people and they can do it because they are experts. You have to engage with a company who can be liable
Yeah.
to their services. Because
I know,
whatever
yeah.
you divulge to them,
Yeah.
it will be their asset and their property already. So there's always an NDA. You go into a non-disclosure agreement with the company. But if this is I don't know, as of course I don't discourage startup companies because that's very important as well. But one of the things that you should look at would be the sense of responsibility and liability when they engage with you. You engage with good companies, someone who is also what do you call this? They take care of their reputation as a company, because with that you are assured that they will do good to do good service.
Okay, very good. Another question from the audience. All right, over there, sir. The mic is here. Please, if you have a question, you can just stand up and go to the mic. I'm happy that you're all engaging, guys.
Thank you for the great inputs that you've given so far. I think this is more for Attorney Edsel. Question is, what are your thoughts in terms of, let's say, controls that will impact countries that are doing a lot of business with the US? As you know, the US has banned specific hardware, specific social media platforms. And some of these are actually critical to the businesses here in the Philippines. Is it actually possible for them to actually flex their muscle and say, you can't use this, therefore, sorry, you have to change your market segment? And what about the profitability? Or is it really based on the controls within the individual country to say that, yes, US, you can't use that, but based on our parameters, we can still do business using that platform? Thank you.
That's a good one. I'm curious, just for my own curiosity, what's banned in the US? Is it TikTok? Or are there other, what else is banned? Just TikTok, or there's more? There's a hardware too. Okay, go on.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
So I'd like to answer that by first saying that the US has a different market-based regime in regulating data privacy and cybersecurity. So they're more market-based economics. So siding on more on behalf of the companies rather than the data subjects, right? If the companies would require a stipulation, a condition as a commercial term, and they have the legal mandate, the space to do that, very difficult to argue against a commercial requirement. That said, in terms of legality, if we are talking about laws that are coming from the U.S., which would we call having long arm jurisdiction, long arm impact upon other countries, I must say that other countries, also like the Philippines, have long-arm jurisdiction. So our our Data Protection Privacy Act of 2012 has a specific long-arm reach. We can assert, try at least, to assert jurisdiction, the government, right? Perhaps through a private entity or a complainant, to assert legal jurisdiction over entities and actors, processors, controllers abroad. In fact, we tend to be aggressive about it as well. And we got this from the Europeans when they implemented GDPR. So yes, there is some dynamic, there is some long arm reach, and I think a lot of it to me is commercially driven, I think. I say that because based on my knowledge of US laws, there is still no overarching uniform federal law that governs, InfoSec standards, right? There are standards which are softer, but there is no federal law. There's a push towards it, but right now it's still state law and it's still sort of ad hoc.
Wow, thank you. Okay, is there any other question, or do we have a question from Zoom? But you can flash the question from Zoom already, but let me ask, anybody can answer this. What are the top security and privacy risks that the BPO industry is facing? I'll start with that. Would any of you like to take this, Ian or Edsel?
I don't have exactly a
Yes.
data about the specific risk for BPO industry, but I would say in every industry, whether you are in BPO, banking, government, or whatever, if you are handling data, you are handling data of your customers. Well, particularly for BPOs, no, a lot of them are handling data of their customers, whether local or abroad. Then phishing email is number one of the risks that you can face. Ransomware is definitely number one. When they try to lock your servers and you cannot access them, then you have to pay for you to access it back or recover it. Then that's one of the things that can happen too.
Yeah, and you can prevent that.
Well, actually, ransomware is something, if you have layers of protection already, then that can be addressed.
Okay, or avoided. Quickly, before I go to Fred.
Sure. So the BPO sector has been flagged by not flagged, but categorized by the National Privacy Commission as a whole sector that is subject to mandatory registration with the National Privacy Commission. This is because, we have to call it that our BPO industry is among the strongest in the world, right? In many cases, probably better than India and other places, right? But with, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility, and the risk there for BPOs is not just to have a strong, ISMS or a strong PMP or privacy management program, but also to get to know all the laws of the countries in which they are doing business, and to make sure that they are compliant with those countries as well as the laws here in the Philippines. So it's a double or triple burden.
All right, now a question from Zoom for Mr. Fred Yap of MasterCard. For enterprises which source their data centers to third parties, how can they ensure that data stored are secured? Whose responsibility is it to ensure data protection? Is it, all of you can answer, we'll start with Fred. Is it the data center provider, the enterprise, or both?
Okay, this is, I think, largely a third-party risk management question. And I think it's a very valid question, right? Who is responsible if you were to outsource your data processing facility to a third party, which is in this case here, a third-party data center? So I think the obvious answer is that both, I think as an enterprise, us ourselves, as well as the third-party data center service provider, we do, both of us play that role in ensuring that the customer's data that is sitting in the data center belonging to us are secure in this case here. So that is the short answer to it. And when it comes to how do we actually make sure that our third-party data center service provider are securing our data? So I think that falls largely back to the whole portion about managing third-party risk, right, and outsourcing risk as well. So before we select a third-party data center provider, we would usually subject them to a series of risk assessment. So not only assessing them from the perspective of cyber risk, but also from the perspective of financial risk as well. Whether do they have the capacity to carry out their business and maintaining their business. So that's very important, right? So then we also assess the capabilities around cybersecurity, right? Do they have the right measures in place to protect against unauthorized access into the data center? Just for example, and how do they secure their hardware, and what are the measures that they put in place to secure the network? So we got to make sure that in this aspect here, we are putting in place, that mandate towards them to secure our data in this case here, and making sure not only that we do it one time, but we also do it continuously. So over the course of us, outsourcing, our processes to the data center, we got to make sure that we monitor their risk so that their risk doesn't change and they are still having the appropriate controls in place. So that's very important in my aspect here.
Very good. Anybody else? Go ahead. Ian, would you like first? Go. Yeah, then we go last.
When we entrust our data to a third party, it is really a responsibility of both. You are responsible for your own data safety, and the third party is responsible to put the infrastructure security. These third-party data centers, they are responsible to put all this necessary security in terms of their infrastructure, because that's what they are selling to us. But what we put inside their data center, the information, we make sure that, like for example, our applications, I want to talk about data center as well and the cloud provider, because sometimes a lot of us are also migrating already to cloud and putting all the applications and solutions in the cloud. Now, once you do that, you are responsible about that kind of applications and the OS of your data, meaning what you make sure that your operating systems or the OS are updated, because when they are not updated, whether the third-party data center is providing this infrastructure, then your systems or your data inside their data center is still vulnerable. So it boils down to both. It's a responsibility of both, and we have to make sure, like what Fred mentioned a while ago, we have to do a really good assessment of when we engage a third-party data center. We need to see how secure their infrastructure is and how our system or our applications and data will be protected.
So I mentioned earlier that the Data Privacy Act requires that accountability of the controller. If your company is a personal information controller, you cannot delegate or relieve yourself of responsibility by hiring a third-party service provider, right? So if you outsource data, which was the data you originally collected, to a third party, and that third party falters, you will also be held liable.
I was going to say, because if I were a customer, and then let's say MasterCard was,
Yeah, you can't blame,
yes,
yeah.
I'm not, and they tell me we hired a third
that's right.
party. I would say, what do I care, right? I trusted you.
Right. So the way the laws are configured here is they burden the controller. If you're a personal information controller, the main principal, the company, to require you to strike out robust, what we call data sharing agreements or data outsourcing agreements with your processors, with your outsourced entities and cloud service providers, and make sure that the legal obligation to comply with all these data privacy laws are bound between you both, right? And it's a contractual tie, not just a legal tie. And aside from the legality of that, that the controller is ultimately still responsible for whatever the servant would do, is really I think the third-party risk assessment. That's really important. You have to audit your third-party service providers. You have to read up and do due diligence upon your partners, because they will affect your business.
Very good. You wanted to add, Undersecretary,
Yeah,
before we go to our parting words?
Yeah, actually, I definitely agree. It's really a contractual obligation on both parties. You can input it in your contract. Just to let you know, on the side of the government, since we don't have a lot of data centers yet here in the Philippines, we also contract with third parties for the data centers. And what we do to ensure that we are protected, and at the same time the responsibilities are properly allocated to who should be responsible, we do it in the contract. I don't know if this will be applicable to you, but right now the DICT is really keen on having its data sovereignty, especially for government data. So if we get cloud from third-party suppliers, we require them that their data center should be here in the Philippines. Otherwise, if the data center, the physical data center of that third-party provider will be outside of the country, it will be subject to different laws, which we might not have any control. So that's for the government. But of course, I suggest if the private Filipino companies maybe should also do that. Yeah.
Okay. Could you do that?
That's my
Biglang
suggestion
ganyan
only.
din. All
But of
right.
course, it's really.
Okay. Our parting words, we'll start different. We'll start with Ian.
Parting words.
Yeah,
already.
parting
Right,
words
okay.
already for the audience, everything we've learned and spoken about.
All right. It's a very interesting discussion. I think one of the things I would just want to share to everyone is that cybersecurity is both responsibility of us, third party, like vendors like us, Trend Micro, and your responsibility. It's a collaboration between the private sector, the policy of the government, and the third party expertise. So it is a collaboration. So one thing that you should remember, I would encourage everybody, is to make sure that all necessary security solutions are in place, because that's the first thing to do. If you do not have that appropriate security solutions, infrastructure or processes, then it is very likely that something can happen. Remember, cyber attacks is not a question of will it happen to me or to happen to you. The question is when will it happen to you? And when that happens, the question is, are you ready to face it? Are you ready to handle it? So infrastructure is very important. Security infrastructure is important. Processes, knowledge about cyber attacks and how to handle it, and partner and choose a partner who is eligible, who has technology, who is capable of doing it for you.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. Fred, parting words.
Right. So I think the key takeaway for this session here today, I think the most important one is that the resilient ecosystem. So I think like what Ian has mentioned and everyone here has been emphasizing upon is that every organization, every layer of society have that role to play in building that secure cyber ecosystem here, right? So that's number one. And the other point that I also like to bring out is that as an organization is to continuously stress test our control. Through this stress test mechanism, then we can see what are the gaps in our security measures and so forth. And last but not least, I think is that having that, one important point that we haven't stressed enough about is to make sure that, when it comes to incident response, preparedness, right, that is also very important. So we're going to make sure that we put in appropriate measures in place, draw out what is our plans, right, business continuity, crisis management, and so forth, and test it out again very comprehensively, and making sure that we make adjustment, as we test it, and then making sure that it's robust enough and we are ready to recover from a cyber attack. That's
very good. Thank you so much, Fred. Attorney Edsel.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of good points. And I want to say that cybersecurity and data privacy measures are not, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a cost item, right? It's not a cost issue. It's, to me, a value-enhancing, it adds to your value chain. Just imagine the consumer fallout, your client fallout, if you don't have these preventive measures in place. Your business could be just wiped out. It'll take years of reinvestment just to recover and regain, social and community trust among your customers, right? So it's really a proactive, value-enhancing endeavor for all of us. The second point I want to put into place, really, a second takeaway is just bear in mind those 5 pillars of compliance and accountability. I think these are 5 key norms that you ought to have in mind. Foremost is really to have a strong incident management and response team, right? So that if there is a crisis, especially if you handle a lot of sensitive personal information, you'll be able to respond quickly. Many of these attack vectors sometimes are beyond our reach. You cannot predict. So the best thing you could do, if you cannot foresee it, is to prepare and rehearse for it, right? So hence you should have a strong incident response and management team.
Or the stress test, as Fred says.
Forensics, yes.
Right? The stress test, right? Okay, Yusek.
Well, I definitely agree with everyone. In resolving this problem, it is a whole community approach. We at the government will help you in always possible. In fact, we will provide education to the public. We will give you the tools, the necessary tools, in order for us to address this problem. But then again, we need your help, because in this problem, we must always be 2 steps ahead of the the hackers. We cannot be trailing. In fact, and I think one of the major contribution that the government can give is really to craft these laws that, as the secretary, if I may quote the secretary, laws that will instill fear in the hearts of the cyber attackers.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Can you please give our panelists a hand? Undersecretary Paul Mercado, Mr. Ian Felipe, Mr. Fred Yap, and Attorney Edsel Tupaz. Thank you so much. On behalf of Colliers Philippines, I'd like to present you. Can we have the Colliers officials here, these certificates, as a token of appreciation for being part of this event? Can our panelists stand up for your photos with Colliers? Thank you so much for being with us today. I have to say I learned a lot, and not just that. I found it quite engaging. It was insightful, and I think it's always important to have conversations where I always say this every time I do Head Start. If the regular viewer can't understand it, it's a bad interview. It has to be laymanized. Everything always has to be understood by most of those watching or most of the people in the room. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please give them a hand. And as we come closer to the end of this event, I'd like to call Ms. Patricia Cruz, Associate Director of Colliers, to announce the raffle winner with our closing remarks.
Thank you, Karen. As we come to the end of this fantastic cybersecurity event, on behalf of Colliers, we would want to express our sincerest gratitude to all the attendees who have gathered here today. Your participation and contribution have undoubtedly made this event a success. Today, we have learned a lot about the importance of taking proactive measures to secure our commercial real estate properties against cyber threats. The information shared by our esteemed speakers and the insightful discussions we've had given us better understanding of the risks we face and equipped us with the necessary tools to mitigate them effectively. In conclusion, we would want to reiterate the importance of implementing strong cybersecurity measures to protect our businesses and, more importantly, our privacy. With more people working remotely, our vulnerability to cyber threats has only increased, and we must stay vigilant to protect our clients, people, and our community. All right, now for the fun part. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to announce the lucky winner of our highly anticipated raffle contest. Well, anyway, but I think you don't know what the raffle is about, right? So let me just let you know what it is. So our lucky winner will receive a complimentary stay for 2 persons, complete with a delicious buffet breakfast and exclusive access to the club lounge. Do I have a business card? I'll put mine here. To be eligible for the raffle, you must attend and be present in this event here. And I think none of you have left, which is good. Of the program now, the winner will be chosen right now, right? So I'll choose it. Maybe our managing director can choose it. Come on, Richard. So we would want to call and congratulate Miss Ana Cabansag from Security Bank, okay? It's not rigged, okay? For winning a free overnight stay in Dusit, Thani, okay? You can please approach our organizing team to claim your prize.
So I'd like to thank so much Dusit, Thani, Manila, our major sponsors, Corbill, Tayo Cash, for making. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the day.